Bam. Oh, man. I got to adjust the camera. That looks bad. You can see my copy machine. God forbid. I have a copy machine in my office. It's true. Let me check and see how things are going. We've got the camera on, obviously, and we've got the audio working. So hopefully things are good on your end. I need to do that. Okay. How are you tonight? It is, I think today is Wednesday. Today is Wednesday. It is, it's the 4th of May, 2022. I have, I think 9 or 10 subscribers. I'd like to get to like a couple thousand subscribers. I'm not going to lie. I saw somebody hit 600,000 subscribers, and like last month they were like 300,000, and it's not that good of a channel. I feel like, I mean, I'm not that great either, but come on, if he can get 600,000, then maybe I can get 1,000. That'd be nice. But, I've only been doing this for a month or two. I don't know. It takes time to make friends with the algorithm, I guess. And at least that's been true with all my channels, actually. The only one that's really strong is my Deerwood Realty channel, and that's the flagship channel of Deerwood Realty. So maybe you don't know what I am. Maybe you're like, hey, I'd really like to subscribe to you, but I don't know who you are, and I don't know what you do. Well, my name is John Schenk, and I'm the founder and managing broker. I'm also the manager of Deerwood Realty in St. Louis, Missouri. Small residential real estate firm. We help buyers buy homes and sellers sell theirs. I got involved with employment and starting businesses in the past, and how onerous it is to have employees. And I don't dislike employees, but once you start down the path of owning your own business and seeing what employers have to pay, I start to wonder about things like, are big corporations happy to pass a number of costs to make it difficult to employ people? Because that gives them a big advantage. I can't just go hire 4 people right now. That would be more than I make in a year with fees and just insurance and I want people to have a good job. I'm not somebody that wants to pay somebody nothing and get a lot out of it. I want people to have great jobs, but boy, it's expensive in the United States. It's expensive all over the world. But I wonder if just all the fees, all the stuff makes it almost impossible to grow as an employer in the United States, or at least a big one. And then I wonder how much that expense causes companies to kind of drift from their mission of profitability, as far as their mission becomes take care of employees and not create products that people actually want or services. Now, you could say that's funny, John, because you're creating a live stream that nobody wants. Well, that was vicious. That wasn't very nice. But I get it. So anyway, I got excited or got interested in employment issues because, it's your life, right? I mean, most of us have to go to work. I mean, most of us have to get up in the morning and we have to do something. We're not allowed to just sit around, because if we do that, we'll not have any money. We can't support ourselves. So we go to work. But, when you go to work, there's sexual harassment, there's unequal pay, there's office politics where you don't get promoted. All kinds of terrible things. There's crimes that happen in offices all the time, crimes that happen out in the open. And then you have these companies adjudicating, investigating without the help of the local authorities. It's just a bizarre world we live in. And then multiply that times the world. I mean, the United States, for the longest time, had one of the strongest economies in the world. I think China's now overtaken us, to be honest with you. I don't know if the statistics show that, but I just feel like a lot of things happening that lead me to believe that China has a pretty good hold on the American economy. But anyway, things are weird. How do you compete in the United States against China? How do you compete against other countries? That kind of stuff is interesting because they have their own laws and stuff like that. Are they the same as ours? Do they pay people? How do they pay people? How does that go? So basically, this live stream, Our Nature of Employment, it's about understanding employment. Like all these things add up to your life. I mean, let's be honest. You're not going to live forever. You're not going to work forever. So we're peeping through a window Maybe that's a bad metaphor. I don't know. We're looking through. We're looking at a, you know, through. We're looking at a mirror, and it's reflecting what it is we're trying to find, and that is this idea of the greatest job you could ever have, or a great job you could have. Now, let me just say this. Oh, hey, if you can subscribe. I mean, I don't know if there's any limits on subscriptions to YouTube. I've got quite a few, got to be more than 100 by now. If you could subscribe, I'd appreciate it. I'd like to have 1,000 subscribers like next year. That'd be good. Anyway, yeah, now I totally lost my thought. I totally lost my train of thought. So am I a professional live streamer? No. Did it just come through then? Yes. But anyway, it's one of those things where I very much enjoy live streaming. I enjoy live streaming to more people, but I understand that there's like 16 other things to watch right now, and so why should you be watching me? But it would be nice if you did subscribe. And I just fixed something on my screen so it's bigger, and it makes me happy. So that's that. So anyway, what do you do, John? Well, I live stream about employment issues Monday through Saturday nights, for the most part, at 9 p.m. Now, you can find out if I'm going to stream, because I'll normally post it on Twitter. May not be, but 15 minutes before we go live. But I will post it because I think it's important. I'm not going to be able to do my live streams for Our Nature of Employment every night. It's just not possible. I've just got too much going on. I do run a real estate brokerage during the day, and I do a live stream for that brokerage as well. Those are at 9 a.m. Monday through Saturday. Sunday, I take the day off, sort of. Sunday, I end up with my real estate business, writing contracts. We learn to find out if we got certain properties. I show properties on Sunday. It's just a very busy day, and most of the time, it doesn't leave time for live streaming. But anyway, like I said, so I'm on Twitter. Our Nature, it's Our Employment is the handle. Hit me up there. Check to see if we're going to have a show, and we'll go from there. Now, I have a lot of content for today. I mean, we can just get started and we'll be fine. But I did want to give you a preview of what's to come. We're going to talk about middle income jobs disappearing and why that might be. We're going to talk about Google, which is the dumbest thing you could possibly do if you have a YouTube channel. I get that. But there's some fascinating things about Google. Like, let's just say that Google is one of the it's probably one of the fastest growing companies in the history of the world. They have significant amount of cash just sitting around. So they should be able to afford to pay their employees a good amount of money. They should be able to, they should have good benefits and everything. And so when I read stories about there's a toxic culture, when I read stories that employees are unhappy with the pay and promotions at Google, when I read stories that Google employees exposed, one exposed a dark side, and some say it's not really a dark side. I don't know. I just want to find out. I want to learn more about it. Am I gonna throw Google under the bus? No. I know who feeds my meals. I know who feeds me. Now, I say that, and honestly, I'm not monetized on Google, or on YouTube, so I don't get fed anything. This is all for fun right now. It's just a chance for me to be with you in an odd way. So, did I turn the subscriber only mode on? Yes, because it gets really bad. I get all these Russian Cyrillic, links, and they're not positive, and it's not part of the conversation. So you do have to subscribe if you want to chat, but come and chat with me. I'm totally good with it. It sucks to have to wait 5 minutes for the first time, but once you're a member, once you're a subscriber, you're golden. You can chat whenever you want to. And I probably read it because honestly, I'm here. I mean, I'm a captive audience in a way. I mean, there's no one in the chat. And so when there is someone, I'm happy to oblige, but maybe that's someday down the road, right? Who knows? Now that I've given you what we're going to do today, let's get into the articles. This morning, if you saw my live stream on real estate, you'll know that I made a very bad error. I did not end up sharing my screen. And so, like, no one knew what I was talking about. I was just talking about it, and then there was nothing on the screen. Now let me go make sure that it's there. It's there. Let's talk about this article. And like I said, we're just going to roll through stuff tonight. Stop me if you find something interesting. I'd love to talk about it. Okay, here we go. It says the shrinking share of middle income jobs. Now, this seems like a reasonable thought, right? Maybe there are middle income jobs that are disappearing. I don't know. It says the issue over the past 4 decades, less educated workers, particularly non-college men, have experienced an actual fall in their real earnings. That is, after adjusting for inflation. An important reason for this decline in the earnings among low-income workers is the shifting structure of occupations with a hollowing out of what had been middle-income jobs. This is especially true in urban and metropolitan areas, places where there had been good job opportunities for those without a college education. But increasingly, the jobs available to those with a high school education in these places are in low-paid occupations with little opportunity for upward mobility. The decline in jobs that provided middle-class wages for those with less than a college education has contributed to the rising wage economy. I believe that. Now, let's go with full disclosure. I have 2 graduate degrees. I have my MBA from Webster University, and then I have an executive master's from the University of Denver, and that's in real estate and construction management. I own my own brokerage. Do I use my education all the time? Not as much as you'd think. Not as much as you think. Some say I'm overqualified for being a real estate agent. I've always wanted to get in a commercial, and we do kind of, but it just has to be the right situation. I mean, nobody's really calling me if they want to, use a Jones Lang LaSalle or a large brokerage. Nobody from there is calling me, but yeah, I get it. I feel like even though I do have 2 graduate college degrees, I feel like I can relate to people. Especially working class folks without college degrees. So let's get to it. The facts. It says rising wage inequality is a well-documented characteristic of the U.S. labor market over the past 40 years, but such divergence in earnings was not a feature of the preceding decades. And so what they're saying is there's wage inequality. There's this, some people are making so much and then other people aren't making squat. This is kind of what I see in the world, but maybe you think, or at least in the United States, maybe you think differently. It says the post-World War II period can be divided into 3 eras with respect to the distribution of wages. The period from immediately after World War II until 1972 was a time when wages were rising evenly for people with all levels of education. In contrast, the period that began with the first oil shock in 1973 through the end of the 1970s saw inflation-adjusted earnings stagnate across the board. Subsequently, beginning in 1980 and continuing to the present, there has been a rising wage inequality, with wages rising robustly for the most educated and falling in real terms for the least educated. This is especially striking because the supply of highly educated workers has increased, while that of less educated workers has declined. The share of hours worked by those without a college degree fell from 75% in 1963 to less than 40% in 2017, while over the same period, the share of hours worked by those with a bachelor's or postgraduate degree rose from less than 15% to more than 35%. So to me, let's just get started quickly. I mean, you almost have to have a graduate degree, a 4-year degree to get a job. It's just part of it. And I don't think that's right. I don't think that's the way it should be, but I'm just saying that's the way it seems to be now. When my mom talks about going to college, she talks about how not a lot of people went to college. And so she felt she had a leg up on everyone else. I don't know if that's true or not, but anyway, let's continue. An important source of these shifts in wages and hours is the hollowing out of the middle income jobs. While there are a range of reasons for the decline in wages and hours worked for those with less than a college education, including eroding union power, rise in trade manufacturing, goods from lower labor cost countries, and falling real values of minimum wages, an important reason that has had as much attention is the decline in jobs that had provided middle-class wages for those with less than a college education. The shrinking share of these middle-income jobs appears as a barbell effect, with the decline of middle-paid jobs contrasted by the rise in employment share for both lower and higher paid jobs. Employment can be sorted into three broadly defined sets of occupations: those with typically low pay and education requirements that require little specialized skill or training, health aides, personal services, cleaning and security, operators and laborers, real estate agents. I know those people would fall in that. Oh, wait a minute, I'm a real estate agent, so I shouldn't say anything. Middle paid occupations that do not necessarily demand a 4-year college degree but do require specialized skills: production workers, office admin workers, and sales workers. I don't know about that. And high-paid occupations that typically require a 4-year degree: technicians, professionals, and managers. In 1980, non-college workers were evenly split between low and medium-paid occupations at 42% and 43%, respectively. And the remaining 1/7 of workers without a college degrees were in traditionally high-paid occupations. By 2016, the share of non-college educated workers in mid-pay occupations had fallen to 29%, and with about 12% of the overall 14% point decline representing a shift into the low paid category and less than a 1.5% point increase in the high pay category. Over this same period, there was a more modest barbell effect for college educated workers, with those in the mid pay occupations declining from 27 to 20%, and those in high pay occupations rising from 57 to 61%, and those in low paying occupations rising from 16 to 19%. So it's like the one group just like disappeared. Most likely you went down in wage statistically, but a few went up. So that's kind of interesting. It says there are technological, global, and institutional reasons why this barbell effect was concentrated among workers in urban and metropolitan areas. In the 50s and 60s, workers in urban areas who did not have a college degree disproportionately held middle education, middle income, blue collar production jobs, and white collar office, administrative, and clerical jobs. As compared to workers in suburban and rural areas, these jobs involved close collaboration with more highly educated professional, managerial, and technical workers who oversaw factories and offices. This collaboration benefited workers holding these middle income jobs, since their value to the company was enhanced by the high education coworkers. But starting in the 1970s, the demand for mid-education urban workers declined due to rising automation in factories, greater use of computers and information technology in offices, and greater pressure from international trade. Workers without a college degree moved from middle-income occupations to those that traditionally require less education and offer lower wages. And because middle-income jobs for those without a college degree were more prevalent in urban and metropolitan areas, this had a proportionally bigger effect in those places. Basically, you didn't have a job. Like, you weren't wanted. They had computers. That was cool. They didn't need you. Not good. Not a good situation there. We talk about all this in glowing terms, like, look at what technology has allowed us to do, but look at what it did to the workforce. The shifting of workers across occupations and the gradual disappearance of certain types of jobs from urban areas has had important economic consequences. There has been a marked difference in the trajectories of wages for workers with different levels of education between 1978 and 2016. Part of the overall relative and absolute decline in wages going to workers with a given level of education between 1980 and 2016 is due to the movement of these workers to lower pay occupations. The hollowing out effect described above. But this by itself accounts for only part of the actual change. A more complete picture reflects changing wages within each type of occupation, which in turn reflects the changing geographic distribution. My gosh, burping and itching my nose. Anyway, yawning. Since workers in urban and metropolitan areas earn more than those elsewhere who are in similar occupations, middle income, middle education jobs have been moving out of urban areas. In 1970, urban areas had about 15 percentage points more middle education jobs than rural areas. And this difference was 25 percentage points for middle education jobs held by those with a high school education or less. These geographic differences disappeared by 2015. The result is a profound reallocation of urban workers with a high school education or less from middle income production and office work jobs to lower paid services, transportation, and laborer occupations that has had an important implications for wage inequality and for the absolute decline in the value of wages for those who do not have a high school degree or do not have an education past high school. I mean, it's fascinating. Middle income, middle education jobs have been moving out of the urban areas. So like, even if you went to the cities to work, they've been moving out. It's really impressive. Here's this chart. Graduate degree, I should be there. I'm not. I've always been a statistical like misnomer. Like, I'm going to change this here because I don't like to have two articles in the same row. Anyway, so I'm going to check the chat because I don't want to be, okay, nobody's in the chat, so we'll keep going. Wage polarization has been more adverse for minority workers without a college degree since they are overrepresented in urban areas and had benefited from a middle income jobs. At present, only 36% of U.S. adults over the age of 24 have a really weird. Wage polarization has been more adverse for minority workers without a college degree since they are overrepresented in urban areas and have benefited from middle income jobs. At present, only 36% of U.S. adults over the age of 24 have a 4-year college degree. That's hard to believe. And this fraction is considerably lower among blacks and Hispanics than among whites and Asians, and lower still among minority men, according to the 2020 census data. By implication, 2/3 of adults fall outside the education category, college or above, that has seen robust earnings gains over the last 4 decades. For black and Hispanic men, the share that is ineligible is higher still, between 75 and 80%. The low-wage jobs that are prevalent in urban areas like personal services, food services, cleaning, home health aides, and security are also less secure and offer fewer non-wage benefits. Other industrial countries that face similar technological changes and international competition have not seen the same rise in inequality. Many European countries have seen the same barbell effect in their occupational structures with a relative loss of jobs with mid-level requirements. However, low-paid service occupations in most of Europe offer relatively higher pay, greater security, and far more generous benefits, including paid vacations, sick time, and family leave than in the United States. Although these countries are not wealthier than the U.S., inequality is lower, real wages are higher at the bottom of the distribution, and greater non-wage benefits are guaranteed due to collective bargaining or regulation. I feel like people are being left behind in the United States. I feel like a lot of people are being left behind, and I don't really like it. This is me. I mean, this is John Schenck. This is talking about employment in the United States. I personally believe that people are being left behind. I personally believe we treat people at the lower ends of the employment scale like animals, and I think that's wrong. I think they should be paid a good wage. I think everyone should be paid a good wage. I think the businesses can afford some of these things. I think the United States goes out of its way in its employment categorizations and its employment law to keep people poor, and I think that's a bad thing. You say, well, John, can you give me one example of the U.S. government's policy that's keeping people poor? Well, I mean, let's see. Like something like income tax. You penalize people that make income. That's a theft. And, you know, if you get taxed on like $20,000, that's a real problem versus being taxed on $100,000. It seems to hurt the poor the most. That's just one instance that I can think of off the top of my head. The other thing is if I think that I don't know, I don't want to get into certain political things, but let's just leave it at that for right now. What this means, the hollowing out of middle income jobs for those without a high school education, jobs that were once abundant in urban and metropolitan areas, has been an important source of wage stagnation for those without a college degree and has contributed to widening wage inequality. There is unfortunately no simple fix to this problem that has been allowed to metastasize over 4 decades. Policies like higher minimum wages, better labor standards, and even an expansion of government spending in areas that would create more middle income jobs, such as a renewed infrastructure investment, will help on the margin. But a broader effort will be needed to restore opportunity for the vast majority of workers who lack a college degree. One promising step in this direction will be for employers to relax some of the college credential requirements that have proliferated, even for traditionally non-college jobs in office work, manufacturing, and even construction. Tight labor markets, together with the fact that workers with a college degree have become increasingly pricey in recent decades, and a recognition that imposing college credential requirements substantially thwarts efforts to diversify professional workforces, give employers an incentive to audition and train workers for positions that in slacker times might have gone to a candidate with a bachelor's degree. A shift towards employers using skills-based rather than credential-based hiring does not negate the importance of raising educational attainment over the long run, particularly among groups that have historically not been well served by our higher education system. Simultaneously, it is both inefficient and inequitable to squander the capabilities of the workers of the present, many who completed their formal education a decade or two ago. They really do talk about something that's, I think, very important here. A shift towards employers using skills-based rather than credential-based hiring. The credential class is what they call them. The laptop class is what we call them. I guess I'm one of them, but I shouldn't be. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, what do you think? I mean, like, I was born in 1977. Like I said, I have 2 graduate degrees. I believe that I should be compensated for the graduate degrees. I spent money to get those degrees. I spent time to get those degrees. I believe I should be paid more than someone that didn't spend the time and didn't spend the money to get those degrees. They made no sacrifice, and yet they should make more than me. I'm just putting it out there. Now, people make more than me all the time. You can go to McDonald's and make more than I make at times, because any money I do make, I have to use to finance the operations going forward. So it's like, I don't see a paycheck very often. So that's just me, though. I'm just probably a bad real estate agent. Somebody that graduates high school and is a go-getter probably is going to do better than me in real estate than I do. I care about my clients. I typically don't want to sell them things. I don't want to sell myself too much. I've always been a little bit negative on that. And so consequently, I'm not probably very good for the business that I'm in. To be quite honest with you, I'm a very good agent. Don't get me wrong. It's just, a lot of, I'd say 75 to 80% of the people that buy and sell houses don't want a good agent or don't need a good agent. They just need somebody to do the job. So, I mean, they're not even actively looking for good agents. It's that bad. So anyway, that's what I have for you here. I think this is true, though. Don't get me wrong. I do think there's a shrinking of middle income jobs. And I don't think it's right. I don't know what you could do about it. I mean, here are some things you could do about it. Stop shipping jobs to China. Stop putting up barriers to employees. I mean, with OSHA and with all these other state organizations, I mean, God, you can't seem to do anything without running afoul of those organizations. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of regulation. It seems like it ends up hurting the employee. Now, can I prove it? No. And would there be any data that I would read that I would trust in the day's world if it was from the New York Times? No, I don't trust them for anything. So that's where I'm at on that. Moving on. I thought this was interesting, and now I don't want to bash Google because I don't know the situation out there. I suspect it's highly competitive to get a job at Google even now. And so, who knows? Like, I guess that's what I'm saying. Who knows what the deal is at Google? Okay. I don't want to rip Google, and I don't want to rip Google because I don't want to be put down in the algorithm even more. I literally think I have 2 people watching this stream, maybe 2, might only be 1. So I don't really want Google to, throw me under the bus, but I do want to cover this stuff. I think it's important. And I think it's in a broader context too. I'm not really going after Google, but I'm going after companies that have a significant amount of cash on hand, and yet they don't seem to use it for employees, or they have like a toxic culture like this is going on here. So let me just make sure that I've got my stuff set up right. Like I said, this morning I had a disaster and I'm embarrassed. So here we go. An AI researcher who quit Google said working at the tech giant was exhausting because of its toxic culture. Okay. Alex Hanna resigned from Google ethical AI team because she was tired of the company's culture and how it treats women and people of color. Okay. I mean, I don't know anything about this. I don't know how they treat women and people of color. Alex Hanna joined Google's ethical AI team in 2018. She left recently because she grew tired of working in what she saw as an unethical organization. I like to talk about ethics in organizations. I really do. And what is unethical and what is ethical. So this is right down the thing. But look, it blocked me off. It blocked me off. Isn't that terrible? Huh. Well, watch me do this. If you're going to be that way. Oh, there you go. All right, let's do this. I mean, be this way. I'll fix you. I mean, there were like 17 articles about this. I mean, for you to do this was dicey. Oh, then I use DuckDuckGo, which is a terrible. Get me out of this. Get me on to Brave. This is terrible. I have DuckDuckGo still from like a long time ago, and it's a terrible browser for me. After what they did when they started manipulating the search terms. Let's see if we can do this in news. Here. Oh no, that's a lawsuit against fostering systematic bias against Black employees. Man, Google's not doing well with this situation. Let's see. She's just not there. Isn't that something? Oh, here it is. Okay. Interesting. Fascinating person. Let's look at this way. Okay. It says let's change it up. So first because I'm here, okay, I don't want to link to places that don't, that bail me, that don't let me link their content. So I'm not going to do that. So now I'm changing stuff up so that I have the right links for you. So that when I'm talking about it, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. And then here's this. Okay. All right. So let's do this. Now I feel better. Okay. Now, so here's the setup. Look, Google's like a powerful company. I think that that you would think that if it's one of the most powerful companies in the world, that they would do pretty well with employer relations. And so let's get into this. And this is even a new one. It says lawsuit accuses Google of fostering systematic bias against Black employees. So a new lawsuit against Google accuses the company of fostering a racially biased corporate culture that offers Black employees lower pay and fewer opportunities to advance than their white counterparts, reports Reuters. Filed on Friday with a federal court in San Jose, the complaint alleges that the company subjected former diversity recruiter April Curley and other current and former Black employees to a hostile work environment. So just let me say this. They're allegations. They haven't been proven. And until the court of law does, rule, we just have to go with that. Okay. In 2014, Google hired Curley to design a program to connect the company with Black colleges. Shortly afterwards, she claimed she was subjected to denigrating comments from her managers, who allegedly stereotyped her as an angry Black woman while passing her over for promotions. While Google claims that they were looking to increase diversity, they were actually undervaluing, underpaying, and mistreating their Black employees, Curley's lawyer told Reuters. The complaint notes black people make up only 4.4% of employees at Google and approximately 3% of its leadership. We've reached out to Google for comment. Curley is not the first person to accuse Google of fostering a work environment hostile to black employees and other people of color. In the aftermath of Timit Gerber's controversial exit from the company, Alex Hanna, a former employee with the tech giant's ethical AI research group, said she decided to leave Google after becoming tired of its structural deficiencies. In a word, tech has a whiteness problem. Hanna wrote on Medium at the time. Google is not just a tech organization. Google is a white tech organization. Okay, so then we go to Alex Hanna. Alex Hanna, who is this? This is a sociologist, ML, AI, fairness, and ethics, Arab American trans lady, roller derby athlete announcer, she and her. So she has the pronouns. And I'm not, look, I don't, whatever. I'm more interested in what is the problem at Google? Is there? Today is my last day at Google. It's been a year and 2 months after my former manager, Timit Gubru, was fired, and nearly a year after my next manager, Meg Mitchell, was given the same treatment. I'm following Timit and joining her at the Distributed AI Research Institute as a director of research affected tomorrow. So, well, I mean, hey, like, it's not like you're out of a job, right? In resignations or others, this is where you write how much you appreciate the people you worked with, and I'm definitely going to do the same. But this is in spite of the culture at Google rather than because of the ethical AI team created by Meg Mitchell and Timit Gubru was one of the most inclusive on which I've ever worked or had the fortune of witnessing firsthand. Throughout many teams I've experienced in tech and academia, this one's members have shown each other utmost mutual respect, care, admiration, and appreciation. Even though it was unstated, Google's ethical AI team has and continues to exemplify a deep ethic, learned and emerging from a black feminist tradition of growth, nurturing, and wanting to see each other succeed. For that, I want to give our erstwhile co-leads the deepest appreciation. I'm going to deeply miss all my teammates. Okay, but Google's toxic problems are no mystery to anyone who's been there for more than a few months or who have been following the tech news with a critical eye. Many folks, especially women like April Curley and Timit, have made it clear just how deep the rot is in the institution. I'm quitting because I'm tired. I could spend time rehashing the litany of ill treatment by Google management from prior organizers, or how the heads of diversity and inclusion are implicated in the company's union busting, which we know thanks to the case brought by the whistleblowers illegally fired for organizing against ICE, CPB, and homophobia on YouTube. I don't know anything about that. I could describe at length my own experiences being in rooms when higher-level managers yelled defensively at my colleagues and me when we pointed out the very direct harm that their products were causing to a marginalized population. That's interesting. I would like to know more about that. I could rehash how Google management promotes at lightning speed people who have little interest in mitigating the worst harms of socio-technical systems compared with people who put their careers online to prevent those harms. Could do that, but I won't. But I've also learned, thanks to my doctoral training in sociology, that one must expand one's personal problems into the structural to recognize what's rotten at the local level as an instantation of the institutional. Our best public sociologists like Tracy McMillan Cotton and Jess Calarco do this exceptionally well. Oh, good Lord. I could also provide quantitative evidence of the rot, like how prior to Timit's hiring, Google Research Management had never recruited a black woman as a research scientist, or how in one town hall around Google Geist, Google's annual workplace climate survey, a high-level executive remarked there had been such low number of black women in the Google research organization that they couldn't even present a point estimate of these employees' dissatisfactions with the organization, lest management risk de-anonymizing the results. These data points are sad. They're also expected from first-person experiences, discrimination lawsuits, and labor complaints made across the tech industry by black people, indigenous people. I don't know what Dalits are. People with disabilities and queer and trans people. Instead, I'd rather start working out the ways in which Google, like so many other tech organizations, maintains white supremacy behind the veneer of race neutrality, both in the workplace and their products. I also want to think through the methods tech workers can use to challenge and expose their employers' ongoing investment in white supremacy. And this is fascinating. Much of the theoretical substance here is informed by the theories of racialized organization developed by sociologists Melissa Wooten, Lucius Coolute, and Victor Ray. In a word, tech has a whiteness problem. Google is not just a tech organization. Google is a white tech organization. Meta is a white tech organization. So are Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, and others that are announced in the same breath when we assess techlash. But so are research centers like OpenAI, who are backed by oodles of venture capital from Peter Thiel and Sam Altman, or the Allen Institute for AI, founded by Paul Allen from Microsoft. More specifically, tech organizations are committed to defending whiteness through interrelated practices, processes, actions, and meanings, the techniques of reproducing the organization. In this case, that means defending their policies on recruitment, hierarchization, and monetization. Sociologist Amber Hamilton discussed how corporate actors, tech organizations included, rarely named the symptoms of whiteness, that is, their own racist organizational practices, in their response to their racial reckoning of 2020, one of the largest social movements of our lifetime. Oh my God. It's not too much longer. Okay, here we go. I mean, this is fantastic. My methodological approach comes from thinking along with Sarah Ahmed's work on complaint. By complaint, I mean grievances we lodge within our workplaces, which can look both like formal complaints made to human resources and informal complaints, which we hold between our peers, comrades, and friends. Anyone who has engaged in the process of a formal complaint can tell you how exhausting it is to register one, how management and decision makers can stall, and how much one has to relive their trauma to do so. Ahmed teaches us how we can learn from complaints. The path of complaint teaches us something about how institutions work, what she calls institutional mechanics. Complaints are often tethered to the individual racist or misogynist, a replication of what Alan Friedman calls the perpetrator perspective implicit in U.S. anti-discrimination law. But more importantly, complaints can tell us much more about the organizational practices and how those practices reinforce white supremacy. Because of the time we commit to the complaint, we intimately learn the rules that have gone unwritten and the standards that are applied to the letter for marginalized people, but only loosely for white and upper class caste Asian men. Oh, if you're Asian, not a good situation here. Complainers learn the racialized nature of institutions much better than the bureaucrats themselves. Example of white supremacy within tech organizations abound, like the racialized sexist practices in the performance review process, which don't account for the huge amount of care work which has fallen on women and femmes during the pandemic, or the pushback on candidates of color from hiring committees, which are nebulous and unaccountable to lower level managers. In Timnit's case, she was fired when Jeff Dean, the head of Google Research, claimed that her paper on the dangers of stochastic parrots, can large language models be too big, did not go through the proper publication approval process. The claim made by Dean that the process is one in which we engage a wide range of research, social scientists, ethics, policy, and privacy advisors, and human rights specialists from across research and Google overall was laughable. As one of only a handful of social scientists on staff, I recognize the claim as patently false. Google management remained silent when an article on the Google walkout page pointed out that there were many counterexamples, like how nearly half the papers in the system were approved within a day or less of the deadline. Fortunately, complaints can operate on a positive mode, namely as a strategy of coalitioning and solidarity. It can be a way of acting as a feminist ear, as Ahmed calls it. To become feminist ears to indicate you're willing to receive complaints. It also speaks to the effectiveness of telling stories about tech institutions as a diagnostic, as in whatever, and as an organizing device. Complaint can work as a type of praxis, a Marxian workers' inquiry of sorts, as Tamara Keese has argued. So what she is doing is using scholarly works to justify her arguments against Google. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm understanding. So in this sign-off, I encourage social scientists, tech critics, and advocates to look at the tech company as a radicalized organization. Naming the whiteness of the organizational practices can help deconstruct how tech companies are terrible places to work for people of color, but also enable an analysis of how certain pernicious incentives enable them to justify and reconstitute their actions in surveillance, capitalist, and carceral infrastructures. For tech workers, continue to complain, be a feminist ear for others, and to develop institutional analysis of your own, and for God's sakes, download Signal. Interesting. So Google and all of tech is, according to this woman, white supremacy. It says it right here. It reinforces white supremacy. Now, I'm amazed at this article. I'm amazed that she wrote it. But hey, I mean, that's what Google is up against, right? Where I come in on this is, look, is Google the place for this discussion? Because it's one of the biggest companies that we have in the United States. And my thing is on the nature of employment is like, what about this? Like this transcends going to work from 9 to 5, right? You're bringing in social issues to work, which is that the way it should be done? I don't know. I don't have an answer. I just find it fascinating that you can, like, it seems to me that this goes past work, if that makes any sense. This whole thing, like, this is like, are you doing this on your off time? Is the criticism relevant to whatever project you're supposed to be working on? I mean, that's where I'm at. 100%. I think that's where I'm at. This is too much for me to understand. Now, I might be dumb, but it's like, what, when you go to school to get a job, is this the argument that you're having at your organization? I don't know. So that was fascinating. Here's another one. I don't know what Google did to make everybody mad at them recently, but they just got the worst press of anyone. And it's kind of impressive. Let's go over another one. And it says Google employees are becoming unhappy with pay, promotions, and execution. Survey results show. The annual Google Guys survey, Google workers gave their employer particularly poor marks on how compensation compares with pay for similar jobs at other companies. Employees also say they face growing bureaucracy that slows them down. Survey results showed. CEO Sundar Pichai, if that's how it is said, I don't know, and I apologize in advance, received a favorable rating of 84% from employees, but he did worse when it came to execution. As Google prepares to bring most employees back to the office, the company is facing a workforce that's increasingly unhappy when it comes to key issues such as compensation and ability to meet career goals. Google's annual employee surveys, internally called Google Guys, show that a number of staffers don't view their pay packages as fair or competitive what they could make in similar roles elsewhere. They're also questioning their employees' ability to execute. Now, this is not a complaint. This is not, I don't mean this in a negative way, but if you think that you can make more money somewhere else, aren't you obligated to go? I mean, in theory, Google's hiring the best and the brightest in the United States. Shouldn't those people be able to be peeled off and work someplace else? I don't mean like if you don't like it, go somewhere else. I mean, like, if that's the case, shouldn't they go, like, for their benefit? Does that make sense? Anyway, the surveys were taken in January and released to employees last week. CNBC reviewed results from the company overall as well as individual groups such as cloud search and ads. The lowest scores across the board were in compensation and execution. The highest scores were in Google's mission and values. So CEO Sundar Pichai, I got nothing, told employees in a brief email announcing the results that the survey is one of the most important ways the company measures how much people are working, how much people like working at the company. And I think that should be a goal. I think that should be a goal. You should try to make it so people like working at your organization. Not even necessarily for the productivity, but because these people are spending their lives at this organization. I mean, that's just me. So retention and employee satisfaction are more critical than ever to Google and others in the tech sector, as a record number of people in the U.S. are quitting their jobs and exploring new opportunities. Google is also about to begin bringing most of its employees back to physical offices at least 3 days a week. After 2 years of remote work because of the pandemic, Google's reopening is scheduled for April 4th. Unsatisfied with promotions, only 46% of survey respondents said their total compensation is competitive compared to similar jobs at other companies. That's down 12 points from a year earlier. A modestly higher number, 56%, say their pay is fair and equitable, and a drop of 8 points from the prior year. And some 64% of employees said their performance is reflected in their pay, down 3 points. Now, what do you think that's about? Like, why would they say within 1 year that it's down 12 points? I'm just asking. It says Business Insider previously reported some of the compensation survey results. We know that our employees have many choices about where they work, so we ensure they are very well compensated, a Google spokesperson said in a statement. That's why we've always provided top of the market compensation across salary, equity, leave, and a suite of benefits. Getting employee feedback is important, and we'll continue to ensure we pay competitively everywhere our employees work and help them grow their careers at Google. See, now I think that's true. We know that our employees have many choices about where they work. I would think that these people could go anywhere. You work for Google, you can go anywhere. Anyway, pay is a matter that Google executives have been forced to address as of late. At an all-hands meeting in December, Frank Wagner, Google's vice president of compensation, responded to concerns about rising inflation and whether the company would provide any sort of increase. Wagner said Google would not implement a blanket raise to match inflation, which is kind of funny. I mean, inflation is terrible. Anyway, meanwhile, revenues continue to surge. Executives have received pay bumps, and the stock hit a record in November, falling with the rest of the market. That's funny. Like, all the managers seem to get the money and raises, and the rest of the people not so much. Pachai still received a favorable rating of 86% from employees in the survey, but some of the more specific questions about Pachai resulted in less flattering responses. For his vision of what the company can be, 74% said he inspires them, while the same number said his decisions and strategies enable Google to do excellent work. Prabhakar Raghavan, who oversees key business and includes search, ads, and commerce, noted in an internal email that 61% of employees see themselves as able to meet career goals at the company and said there's work to be done. Well, I don't think that's so bad. What do you want, like 80%? We need to make sure that you succeed to your full abilities and keep learning and growing your careers here. Highlighting a 7% dip in views about Google's execution, he said that means we need to bring more attention to busting bureaucracy and ensuring we can act quickly when needed. Well, Google now is a huge organization, and they may have a lot of bureaucracy, and they may have needed a lot of bureaucracy just to stay solvent. By solvent, I mean that so they could just produce anything. I don't know if you want to move laser fast when you are the market leader, when you're the dominant force in the marketplace in your industry. In the cloud division, CEO Thomas Kurian also noted a decline in execution and said in an email there remains to be barriers to decision making. Kurian's unit faces similar to the parent companies. Only 54% of employees in the cloud group say the promotional process is fair, a decline of 2 points from a year ago. Kurian says there's a lack of criteria for promotions and a lack of transparency. Raghavan and Pichai each received favorability ratings of 84%. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. Survey results showed employees are pleased with Google's ability to deliver on the mission to organize the world's information, make it universally accessible and useful. I don't think they do that, but we'll go with that. Okay. Google's mission received a 90% rating, while values came in at 85%. It's heartening. See, that's why it's tough. You have this woman that wrote this scorching article about how terrible Google was, and then the rating on these things, 90% and 85% on value, 90% on rating of the mission. It's heartening to see that our organization takes a lot of pride in our mission managers and helpfulness of our products. These continue to be foundational to our work and our culture. Additionally, 96% under Raghavan agreed that Google's products are helpful to people in their everyday lives. Well, how could it not be? I mean, I'm literally, what am I on? I'm not on Google. I'm on Chrome for Streamlabs or from StreamYard. I mean, I've got Gmail. I mean, come on. Diversity and inclusion ratings were mixed. The company received favorable marks between 82 and 90% when it came to belonging and employees feeling their opinions are valued. I mean, come on. That's fantastic. So, you see what, I mean, their own company is kind of refuting what that woman wrote. I don't know. Let's continue. This is on Newsweek. I mean, this is a Google night, and I hope that this is not my last night on the live stream for my discussion about Google. I didn't mean to be. I don't like to throw any company under the bus, even if they're terrible companies. So let's continue. Former Google employee reveals the dark side of the tech company perks. Well, what do you mean the dark side? Former Google employee has gone viral for exploring a dark reason behind the lavish perks offered at a prestigious tech company offices. In a TikTok video that's garnered 4.5 million views since it was posted on March 3rd, Ken Walks, we're going with that, said his former employers, Google and Yelp, offered perks as a tool to make people work more for less. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Walks describes how a range of benefits was designed to keep employees in the office for as long as possible. He could eat 3 meals a day for free at Google, but dinner was only available at 6 or 6:30, so he had to work late to get it. Free shuttles carried employees to and from work between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., making it possible for them to start early and leave late. The shuttles also had Wi-Fi so people could keep working in transit. It seemed great that the employees could bring their dogs to the office, but it meant they never had to leave work to take care of their pets. It really does become your everything, he told Newsweek about working at Google. I would go in the office on Saturdays and Sundays just to use the gym. In his video, he explained a similar pattern at Yelp. While working there in the digital ad sales, he enjoyed unlimited coffee and snacks, but at a price. According to Walks, his director said he could not earn commission until he secured $12,000 in sales, since that was when the company broke even on all the perks and office space they gave him. Walks said he would rather not have the perks and just earn a higher salary, but his manager said that was not possible. While some viewers agreed with him, others argued that his portrayal of a dark side hardly detracted from a cushy job with a far higher salary than the average U.S. worker earned. I see no darkness to any of these perks, one user commented. If a company was taking care of me that well, I wouldn't have a problem working longer hours to do my job. How can you complain about those perks? Another person chimed in. Try working in healthcare or retail in the food industry. Walks addressed these critiques to Newsweek, saying that even with a $150,000 salary and abundant perks, a Google employee still made pennies on the dollars compared with the company executives. Well, okay. Tell me that isn't true across the board in the United States and large organizations. Google, Apple, and Twitter all recently announced plans to bring employees back to the office. Google Bay Area employees are expected to return by April 4th. Apple's corporate employees will be returning at least one day a week starting April 11th, and Twitter's corporate offices are reopening internationally on March 15th, according to the tech news site Protocol. Walks claimed this pattern was inevitable. They have a massive sunk investment in this already. I don't know. I mean, you have to understand, I'm not a tech worker. I don't know what to expect from tech workers. Seems like some of them are unhappy, seriously unhappy. That one woman is not Alex Harris, I think was her name. Not happy with Google. So, I just think it's interesting. I can't believe some of the stuff that I read tonight. All right, let me get there. All right, good. So we had a show tonight. We had some just high level arguments about process, and goodness, I don't even know what one of those things that the woman wrote about are. White supremacy. All tech is white supremacy. I'm white. So I've heard this. I've heard a lot of this much of my life. So, whatever. Wow. So what did we learn? Well, we learned that even though the surveys at Google seem to indicate that people are pretty happy working there, there are those who aren't happy working there. Now, isn't that kind of true across the entire employment spectrum? There's people that like working where they do, and there's people that hate it. It's interesting. Sometimes you can see people, and we'll talk about it down the road. You'll see people, maybe a manager will give somebody a gift and they'll think that the gift is in poor taste. And one person will think that, another person will think it's very, very nice for the manager to do such a thing. It's like a no-win situation. So I feel like it's my job to bring you this oddity that is employment. I mean, it's like, I have no idea. My company, Deerwood Realty, we like to make money. That's our goal. And we're not very good at it. I mean, relatively, there's people that make much more money in the brokerage than I do. But I don't normally go on. I don't think it's my place to worry about social issues at work. Now, maybe this is because of when I was raised, the time I was raised, when I was born. I don't know, but I care about how the company performs. I don't care about anything else. I don't want to waste my time and my mental capacity on issues that aren't related to me producing widgets. Maybe that makes me maybe that's why I never made it in the corporate world. But I don't know. Fascinating window into working at one of the fastest growing companies that we've seen in the United States. And, a company that, has world implications. With that, I'm going to head on out. If you watch this later and you enjoyed it, I mean, I feel like I brought you guys something tonight. Would you please hit the subscribe button? I ask because I'd like to have a lot of subscribers. And I've said it now, 3 times? I just want subscribers. I know it's a boomer thing. The number of subscribers means something to me. So anyway, with that, I'm going to head on out. Thank you for watching. I think I'll see you tomorrow at 9, as long as my channel hasn't been canceled for bringing up Google, which I hope I wasn't unfair. That was not my intent. So anyway, with that, I'm going to head on out. Thank you for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.